The starship Intrepid cut through the darkness of space, its engines humming with power as it approached the massive space station. Captain Samantha Hayes stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the alien structure grow larger on the view screen. The station was a marvel of engineering, a spinning wheel of metal and light that housed the headquarters of the Galactic Confederation. "Quite a sight," said Commander Jack Martinez as he stepped up beside her. His face still bore a thin scar from the Battle of New Delhi during the Third World War. "Sure is," Hayes replied. She unconsciously touched the metal pinned to her dress uniform. She had earned it pulling 3 soldiers from a burning tank in the African campaign. That was 18 years ago, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. "Nervous?" Martinez asked. Hayes smiled. "I've faced worse than a bunch of diplomats." The Intrepid was humanity's first diplomatic vessel, sent to represent Earth at the Galactic Confederation Summit. After decades of rebuilding following the Third World War, humans had finally developed faster-than-light travel. They discovered they weren't alone in the galaxy, far from it. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," reported Lieutenant Kevin Foster from his console. Foster was young, but his intelligence work during the border conflicts had earned him a spot on this historic mission. "Take us in, Lieutenant Scott," Hayes ordered the pilot. As the Intrepid glided toward the docking bay, Hayes felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Earth was still recovering from its last war. They needed allies, not enemies. The ship settled into the docking clamps with a gentle shudder. Hayes took a deep breath. "Command crew with me," she said. "Let's go meet the neighbors." The airlock hissed open, revealing a large reception area filled with aliens of various shapes and sizes. Some were humanoid, others utterly foreign to human eyes. A tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stepped forward. "Welcome to Centauri Station, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Krell of the Ulthani, chairman of the Confederation Council." His voice was deep, resonating through a translator device on his chest. Hayes stepped forward. "Captain Samantha Hayes of the United Earth Alliance, we're honored by your invitation." The alien delegation led them through wide corridors bustling with activity. Hayes and her crew tried not to stare at the diverse life forms they passed. Foster was recording everything with a small camera in his uniform. They entered a vast, circular chamber where representatives from 15 different species sat in tiered seating. The walls were transparent, offering a stunning view of the stars. "The Confederation Council," Ambassador Krell announced. "Representatives from all member worlds." Hayes and her team were directed to seats at the center of the chamber. She felt the eyes of hundreds of aliens studying them. A slender alien with iridescent skin rose from the highest tier. "I am High Counselor Zell of the Pax Confederation. For 300 years we have maintained peace among our worlds. We welcome Earth to this gathering." Hayes nodded respectfully. "Earth thanks you for this opportunity. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." "And yet," came a harsh voice from one side, "you come in a ship armed with primitive weapons." Hayes turned to see a reptilian alien with red scales and yellow eyes staring at her with obvious disdain. "Ambassador Vex of the Vraxian Collective," Krell explained quietly. Hayes met the Vraxian's gaze steadily. "The Intrepid is equipped with defensive capabilities only. We've traveled beyond our known space. It seemed prudent." The Vraxian made a sound like stones grinding together. A laugh, Hayes realized. "Your species is barely a century past splitting atoms, yet you venture into space prepared for conflict. Typical of primitive races." Hayes felt Martinez tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm. "Ambassador, Earth's history has taught us to be cautious, but we come in peace." "Earth's history," Vex continued, tapping on a datapad. "Our preliminary research shows your planet has been in a near-constant state of warfare. Your most recent global conflict ended only 18 years ago, costing millions of lives. And you use such basic weapons: ballistic projectiles, chemical explosives, nuclear devices. Hardly the credentials for a civilized world." Hayes remained calm, though she felt her crew's discomfort. "We've learned from our past, Ambassador. That's why we're here." High Counselor Zell raised a hand. Earth's internal conflicts are not our concern, provided they can abide by Confederation law. The question before us is whether to grant Earth probationary membership. The Council debated for hours. Hayes and her crew listened as aliens discussed human history, technology, and politics. Some were curious, others dismissive. The Vraxian delegation was openly hostile. These humans understand nothing of true combat, Ambassador Vex declared, during one heated exchange. They kill each other with explosives and projectiles like our ancestors did thousands of years ago. They have no concept of how modern species wage war. Martinez leaned close to Hayes. If he knew what we did in Jakarta with just explosives and projectiles, he might not be so smug. Hayes suppressed a smile. The aliens clearly thought humanity was primitive, dangerous but unsophisticated. They had no idea what humans were truly capable of. Finally, after much discussion, the Council voted. Earth was granted probationary membership in the Confederation, with full rights to be determined after a one-year observation period. Captain Hayes, High Counselor Zell announced, "You will serve as Earth's interim representative. Your ship and crew may remain at Centauri Station." Hayes stood and bowed slightly. "We are grateful for this opportunity." As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Vex approached her. "Captain," he said, his voice low, "do not mistake this vote for acceptance. Some of us recognize dangerous species when we see them." Hayes met his gaze calmly. "I assure you, Ambassador, Earth desires only peaceful relations." "For your sake, I hope so," the Vraxian replied. "The Confederation has faced many would-be conquerors. All have fallen before our superior technology and combat doctrine. Your primitive warfare would be no match." After the Vraxian walked away, Martinez moved beside her. "Friendly guy." "He's afraid," Hayes said quietly. "Of us? They're centuries ahead of us technologically. Technology isn't everything in a fight. You know that better than most." Later, as they returned to the Intrepid for the night, Lieutenant Foster approached Hayes with a troubled expression. "Captain, I've been monitoring Confederation communications. There's something strange happening on the outer rim. Multiple reports of unidentified ships." "Pirates?" Hayes asked. Foster shook his head. "I don't think so. The Confederation military is mobilizing, but trying to keep it quiet." Hayes looked out the viewport at the glittering space station. "So we've arrived just in time for trouble." "What do we do?" Martinez asked. Hayes watched as alien ships moved in the distance, their designs, sleek and powerful. The Confederation thought they knew everything about combat. They saw humans as primitive warriors barely worth considering. "We observe, Commander. We learn. And we prepare." She turned to face her officers. "Because if there's one thing humans understand better than anyone, it's how to fight when everything is on the line." The stars shimmered silently beyond the viewport, unknowing witnesses to the beginning of a story that would change the galaxy forever. 6 months passed quickly on Centauri Station. Captain Hayes and her crew learned about the Confederation, its technologies, and its many alien species. They sent regular reports back to Earth, describing the wonders and dangers of their new galactic community. Lieutenant Foster continued to monitor unusual communications. Something was happening at the edges of Confederation space, but the alien leaders shared little with the humans. One morning, alarms blared throughout the station. Hayes rushed to the Central Command Center, where screens showed battles raging across 3 star systems. "What's happening?" she asked a blue-skinned Olthari officer. "The Tirkal Empire has attacked our border worlds," the alien replied without looking away from the screens. "They have broken the treaty." Hayes watched as sleek Confederation ships exchanged fire with angular red vessels. The battles looked organized, almost ceremonial, with ships forming precise formations as they fought. Ambassador Krell entered the command center, his 4 arms moving in agitation. "Captain Hayes, you should return to your ship," he said. "This conflict does not concern Earth." Before Hayes could respond, her communication device buzzed. It was a direct call from Earth. She stepped away to answer it. General Frank Peterson's face appeared on the small screen. His expression was grim beneath his gray hair. "Captain, I need you back on Earth immediately. The Confederation has requested our help." 6 days later, Hayes stood in the United Earth Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. The room was filled with military officers from around the world. General Peterson pointed to a holographic map showing the attacked star systems. "The Confederation is officially requesting Earth's military assistance. They need soldiers." "Our technology is far behind theirs," said Admiral Liu. "What use would our troops be?" "They don't want our ships or our weapons," Hayes explained. "They want our soldiers, specifically our veterans." The room grew quiet. "The Tirkal have overrun the Confederation's outer defenses faster than expected," Peterson continued. "According to Captain Hayes, the Confederation military hasn't fought a real war in over 300 years. They're struggling to adapt." A week later, the Earth transport ship Dauntless docked at Centauri Station. From it emerged 400 of Earth's most experienced combat veterans, led by Major Diane Kelly. Kelly was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had commanded urban combat units during the Battle of Chicago in the Third World War. Standing beside her was Captain Leo Washington, a former Special Forces operator with dark skin and a quiet demeanor that masked his lethal skills. Hayes met them at the airlock. "Welcome to space," she said with a smile. Kelly shook her hand firmly. "Quite a step up from street fighting in Chicago." "Don't be too sure," Hayes replied. "War is war, no matter where you fight it." They walked through the station toward the Confederation military headquarters. Aliens stopped to stare at the human soldiers. Unlike the sleek uniforms of Confederation forces, the Earth troops wore practical combat gear with multiple pockets, reinforced joints, and built-in medical systems. "They look at us like we're museum exhibits," Lieutenant Alan Garcia said quietly. He was a tactical systems expert who had reprogrammed enemy drones during the border conflicts. "Let them look," said Sergeant Nicole Mitchell, hefting her pack. "They'll see what humans can do soon enough." Mitchell was a demolitions expert who could make a bomb from almost anything. Admiral Zorgath, the Supreme Commander of Confederation forces, met them in a large briefing room. The Othari officer was tall, with blue skin and a rigid posture that spoke of centuries of military tradition. "Earth forces," he said, looking down at them. "We appreciate your willingness to assist. However, I must be clear that your contribution will be limited by your technological capabilities." Washington and Kelly exchanged glances but said nothing. The Admiral activated a holographic display showing a small green planet. "This is Helios 4. An agricultural world with significant mineral deposits. It is currently lightly defended. Your battalion will reinforce the garrison there, while our main fleets engage the Tirkal in more critical sectors." Hayes noticed the look on Kelly's face. "You're sending them to a backwater?" "We are deploying them where their primitive capabilities will be most effective," the Admiral replied. "Our forces will handle the main engagements." Kelly stepped forward. "Admiral, my people aren't primitive. We're experienced. There's a difference." The Admiral's expression didn't change. "Experience with Earth conflicts has limited relevance to galactic warfare, Major. The Tirkal use quantum weaponry and temporal displacement tactics. Your ballistic weapons and explosives will serve only as a deterrent on a low-priority target." "We'll do our job, Admiral," Kelly said firmly. Later, aboard the transport that would take them to Helios 4, Kelly gathered her officers. "They think we're a bunch of cavemen with sticks," she said bluntly. "Let them think that. We've all been underestimated before." "These Tirkal?" Washington asked. "What do we know about them?" Hayes displayed images of the enemy aliens. They were insectoid creatures with chitinous armor and multiple limbs. "They're hierarchical, highly disciplined, and technologically advanced," she explained. "But according to Confederation records, they fight in formal patterns. Their tactics haven't changed in centuries." Garcia studied the tactical data. "Their command structure is rigidly centralized. Every order comes from the top down." Mitchell smiled. "Sounds like the kind of army that falls apart when things don't go according to plan." "Exactly," Kelly said. They've never faced humans before. They have no idea what we can do. 3 days later, the Earth Battalion arrived on Helios, for the planet was beautiful, with rolling green fields and purple mountains. The human troops set up their base near the main colony, a collection of gleaming white buildings surrounded by farmland. The local Confederation commander, a reptilian officer named Sevtar, greeted them with poorly hidden disdain. "Your zone of responsibility is the Southern Hemisphere," he told Kelly. "It is largely uninhabited and of minimal strategic value." "Thank you, Commander," Kelly replied politely. "We'll handle it." As the alien walked away, Washington moved beside her. "They're putting us out to pasture." "Fine by me," Kelly said. "Gives us time to prepare." "For what?" asked Garcia. "The Admiral said the Tiracal won't come here." Kelly looked up at the sky, where the stars were just becoming visible as dusk fell. "The thing about being a veteran," she said quietly, "is knowing that the enemy rarely does what you expect. We prepare for everything." For 2 weeks, the human forces trained and fortified their position. They mapped the terrain, prepared fallback positions, and cached supplies in hidden locations. The Confederation officers watched with amusement as the humans dug trenches and set up primitive-looking defenses. "Such outdated methods," one alien officer remarked to Sevtar. "Do they expect to fight with shovels?" Then, in the middle of the night, alarms blared across the colony. Lieutenant Garcia burst into Kelly's quarters. "Major, multiple Tiracal ships just appeared in orbit. They're landing troops all over the planet." Kelly was already pulling on her gear. "How many?" "Thousands. And they're hitting the Southern Hemisphere, hardest." Kelly smiled grimly. "Right where no one expected them to go." She activated her communication device. "All units, this is Major Kelly. Battle stations. The enemy is here, and they're about to learn what it means to fight humans." Outside, the night sky lit up with the fire of descending Tiracal dropships. The real war had begun. The first wave of Tiracal dropships landed with precision across the southern hemisphere of Helios IV. The insectoid warriors moved in perfect formations, their chitinous armor gleaming under the planet's twin moons. They expected minimal resistance on this backwater world. They were wrong. Major Kelly watched from a hillside bunker as the alien troops approached the first human defensive line. The Confederation soldiers in the northern regions had already fallen back, following their standard defensive protocols. But the humans wouldn't be doing things by the book. "They're moving in standard assault pattern," Lieutenant Garcia said, watching the enemy on his tactical display. "Just like the Confederation intelligence reported." Kelly nodded. "And they expect us to respond with standard Confederation defensive measures." "Which we won't," Washington said with a slight smile. "Definitely not," Kelly agreed. "Sergeant Mitchell, are you ready?" Mitchell's voice came through the comm system. "Oh yes, ma'am, very ready." The Tiracal forces moved forward in perfect lines, their weapons raised. They approached the empty trenches the humans had dug, clearly visible and seemingly abandoned. The alien commander at the front signaled his troops forward to secure the position. Kelly waited until the main force was fully committed. "Now, Mitchell." A series of explosions erupted beneath the Tiracal formation. Not the high-tech plasma explosions they might expect, but simple, devastating bombs made from local mining explosives and agricultural chemicals. The carefully arranged pattern of blasts broke their formation and sent the alien soldiers into confusion. "First team, move in," Kelly ordered. Washington led a small squad from hidden positions in the tall grass. They moved in pairs, firing with deadly accuracy at the disrupted Tiracal forces. Unlike the Confederation troops who fought in orderly units, the humans darted between cover, changed positions constantly, and targeted officers first. "They're trying to regroup," Garcia reported, watching the enemy signals. "Their commander is ordering them to form a defensive circle." "Perfect," Kelly said. "Mitchell, Phase 2. More explosions erupted, this time from behind the Tiracal position. The aliens turned in confusion, unsure which direction the attack was coming from. In the chaos, Washington's team melted away into the landscape. By dawn, the first Tircal attack force had retreated in disarray, leaving behind dozens of dead. The humans had suffered only minor injuries. In the main colony, Commander Sevtar received the reports with disbelief. "Impossible," he said, staring at the casualty numbers. The humans were outnumbered 5-1. His aide, a young Olthari officer, seemed troubled. "Sir, they didn't fight according to any recognized combat doctrine. They used explosives hidden in the ground. They attacked in small groups from multiple directions. They targeted command personnel specifically." "Barbaric tactics," Sevtar muttered. "No honor in such fighting." Over the next 3 days, the Tircal landed more troops. Each time, the humans avoided direct confrontation, instead using traps, ambushes, and hit-and-run attacks. They melted away when the enemy brought overwhelming force, only to strike again, where they weren't expected. On the 4th day, the Tircal changed strategy. They landed a massive force near the colony's main agricultural processing center, a facility vital to the planet's food production. This time they moved cautiously, scanning for traps and keeping tight formations. Kelly watched the approaching force from a hidden observation post. "They're learning." "Not fast enough," Washington replied. "Garcia, how's our little surprise coming?" The lieutenant grinned. "Ready to go? The Tircal communications network is sophisticated, but they never expected someone to hack it from the inside." The Tircal force approached the seemingly abandoned facility. Their forward scouts reported no signs of humans or traps. The commander ordered his troops to secure the building. As they entered the facility, Garcia activated his program. Suddenly, the Tircal communication devices began broadcasting contradictory orders in their own command frequencies. Some units were told to advance, others to retreat. Some were warned of attacks from directions where no enemy existed. In the confusion, Mitchell's team activated the facility's own systems. Harvesting machines came to life, moving through the building, on automated paths. Conveyor belts started running and sorting systems began operating at full speed. To the Tircal, it seemed as if the entire building had come alive. Washington led the actual attack with 3 small teams entering from different points. They didn't try to kill every enemy soldier. Instead, they created chaos, used the moving machinery as cover, and focused on disrupting the Tircal command structure. By nightfall, the Tircal had retreated again, leaving the agricultural facility in human hands. They had lost over 100 soldiers. The humans had lost 7. A week into the battle for Helios 4, the Tircal commander requested reinforcements. His reports to his superiors were filled with confusion about the human tactics. They didn't fight like the Confederation forces. They didn't hold ground or form defensive lines. They struck from nowhere, used the environment as a weapon, and disappeared before a proper response could be organized. In the human base camp, Kelly gathered her officers to plan their next moves. They were running low on ammunition and medical supplies. The Confederation support they had been promised hadn't arrived. "We've hurt them, but they keep coming," Kelly said, looking at the map. "They want this planet badly." "The question is why," Washington said. "What's so special about Helios 4? Garcia had been analyzing Confederation data files. "I think I know. According to these geological surveys, there's a massive deposit of quantum crystals under the southern mountains. The Confederation classified it as a minor mineral resource, but for the Tircal's weapons technology, it would be invaluable." Mitchell laughed. "So they sent us to guard the most valuable part of the planet without telling us?" "Probably didn't think we needed to know," Kelly said. "Or didn't think we'd last this long." A young soldier rushed into the command tent. "Major, we've captured a Tircal officer. He was separated from his unit during the last attack. The alien sat bound in a secure room. Its multifaceted eyes watched the humans warily." Kelly entered with Washington and an interpreter device. "Why is your empire so determined to take this planet?" Kelly asked directly. The Tircal clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement. "You do not even know what you are defending. The crystal deposits in these mountains could power our fleet for decades." "We figured that out," Kelly said. "What I want to know is why you keep using the same tactics when they're clearly not working against us? The alien seemed confused by the question. We follow the proper combat protocols. It is how war has been conducted for 1,000 years. Not on Earth, Washington said. The Tyrakal studied them. Your species fights, strangely, without pattern or predictability. It is dishonorable. Kelly leaned forward. We fight to win. There's no honor in losing. Before the alien could respond, an alarm sounded. Garcia rushed in. Major, we're getting a transmission from orbit. It's the Intrepid. Captain Hayes is here with reinforcements. Kelly smiled. Looks like Earth hasn't forgotten us after all. The Tyrakal officer watched them with new intensity. More humans? With these irregular tactics? Oh yes, Kelly said as she stood to leave. And Captain Hayes? She wrote the book on irregular tactics. The Intrepid arrived with 3 Confederation support vessels. Captain Hayes had convinced Admiral Zorgath that the situation on Helios 4 was more important than the alien commander initially believed. Now, as she stepped onto the planet's surface for the first time, Hayes was shocked by what she saw. The once pristine colony was scarred by battle. Craters dotted the landscape where Tyrakal dropships had landed. Smoke rose from the distant hills where fighting continued. But what surprised her most was that the human defensive positions remained intact. Commander Sevtar met her at the landing pad. The reptilian officer looked tired and confused. Captain Hayes, I did not expect to see you here. Clearly, Hayes replied. Your reports to Central Command said the situation was under control. It is unexpected, Sevtar admitted. The humans fight in ways we do not understand. They refuse to hold positions. They strike and disappear. They use the terrain against us. That's how humans have always fought when outnumbered, Hayes said. Where is Major Kelly? Major Kelly had established her command post in an underground storage facility. Maps covered the walls marked with enemy positions and movement patterns. When Hayes entered, Kelly was in the middle of planning the next operation with her team. Captain, Kelly said with a smile, welcome to the party. Hayes looked at the maps. Quite a situation you have here. We're holding our own, Kelly replied. But the Tyrakal keep coming. They want those crystal deposits badly. Hayes nodded. That's actually why I'm here. The Confederation didn't realize the strategic value of these crystals until the Tyrakal attacked. Now Admiral Zorgath wants to send a full battle group. A bit late, Washington commented. Better late than never, Kelly said. What changed? Their minds? Hayes activated a holographic display showing the wider conflict. The Tyrakal are pushing hard on 3 fronts, but they're committing disproportionate resources here. That got the Admiral's attention. So what's the plan? Garcia asked. The Admiral is calling an emergency council at Confederation headquarters. He wants you there, Major Kelly. Your defense of Helios 4 has impressed some important people. 2 days later, Kelly stood in the Grand Strategic Planning Chamber at Confederation headquarters. Representatives from all member species were present, along with the highest-ranking military officers. Admiral Zorgath presided from a raised platform. This emergency session will now begin, the Admiral announced. We face an unprecedented situation. The Tyrakal offensive continues on multiple fronts, but our intelligence suggests they are planning a major assault on the Confederation capital itself. Murmurs spread through the chamber. An attack on the capital would be catastrophic. Before we discuss our response, the Admiral continued, I wish to acknowledge the unexpected success of the Earth forces on Helios 4. Major Kelly, please address the Council. Kelly stepped forward, feeling the eyes of dozens of alien species upon her. She was not a natural public speaker, but she knew what needed to be said. Thank you, Admiral. For 3 weeks, my battalion has defended Helios 4 against superior numbers. We've done this not through technological advantage, but through adaptive tactics. She activated a display showing the human defensive operations. The Tyrakal, like the Confederation, fight according to established patterns. They expect their enemies to do the same. When we didn't, they couldn't adapt quickly enough. This is barbaric warfare, objected a Vraxian representative. There is no honor in such methods. Kelly met his gaze steadily. With respect, there is no honor in defeat. Earth learned that lesson through centuries of conflict. Hayes stepped forward to stand beside Kelly. What the Major is describing is something humans call asymmetric warfare. It developed on Earth when forces with technological disadvantages needed to fight against superior enemies. Admiral Zorgath studied the battle footage. These tactics seem chaotic. They're adaptive, Kelly corrected. Every human soldier is trained to think independently, to take initiative when plans fail. We don't just follow orders. We accomplish missions by whatever means necessary. How can an army function without strict command hierarchy? Asked an Ulthari general. It functions better, Washington said from his position near the wall, because when communications fail or commanders fall, the mission continues. The admiral was silent for a long moment. Our intelligence indicates the Tirkal will attack the capital within 2 weeks. Our conventional defenses are already deployed to other fronts. He turned to Kelly. Major, would these human tactics be effective in defending the capital? Kelly studied the holographic display of the massive space station that served as the Confederation's seat of government. Yes, she said confidently, but we would need to make significant changes to your defensive approach. What changes? The admiral asked. First, decentralize your command structure. Second, prepare for fighting within the station itself, not just in space. Third, focus on disrupting the enemy's ability to coordinate rather than trying to defeat their main force. The chamber erupted in objections. The idea of fighting inside the station, of allowing enemies to board at all, was anathema to Confederation. Military doctrine. Silence, the admiral commanded. When quiet returned, he addressed Kelly. What would you need to implement these strategies? Authority to reorganize the station's defensive forces, access to all technical systems, and every human veteran who can be transported here in the next week. The admiral considered for a long moment. Granted. For the next 10 days, the capital station transformed under Kelly's direction. Hayes worked with Confederation leadership, while Kelly trained their forces in human tactics. Washington taught alien soldiers to move in small, independent teams rather than large formations. Garcia worked with technical crews to create backup communications and false signals to confuse enemy targeting. Mitchell established improvised defensive positions throughout the station, focusing on choke points and critical systems. Many Confederation officers resisted the changes. They complained about the lack of formal battle lines, the emphasis on ambush tactics, and the seemingly chaotic command structure. This is not how civilized species wage war, one Vraxian commander protested during a training session. Kelly fixed him with a hard stare. The Tirkal don't care about civilization. They care about winning. So do we. On the evening before the expected attack, Admiral Zorgath visited the Human Command Center. Kelly and her team were making final preparations, their faces tired, but determined. Major Kelly, the Admiral said, I must confess I had doubts about your methods. Many still do. I understand, Admiral, Kelly replied. They seem strange to you. Yes. The tall alien looked uncomfortable. In 300 years of Confederation history, we have developed what we believed were perfect combat doctrines. Yet in 3 weeks, your small force has achieved more against the Tirkal than our main fleets. Humans had to learn the hard way, Hayes said. Through centuries of fighting each other, we discovered that rigid doctrine always fails against adaptive tactics. The Admiral nodded slowly. Tomorrow will be the test. The Tirkal believe they understand our defenses. They expect us to fight as we always have. They're in for a surprise, Kelly said with a grim smile. Indeed. The Admiral straightened his uniform. I have served in the Confederation military for 70 years. I have never faced a true war, only border skirmishes and police actions. You humans, we're veterans. Washington said simply. "We've seen the real thing." "Yes," the Admiral agreed. "And tomorrow the Tircal will learn what that means." As the Admiral left, Hayes turned to Kelly. "Get some rest, Major. Tomorrow we show the galaxy how Earth fights." Kelly nodded, looking at the tactical display of the station. Across its vast structure, hundreds of small teams waited in hidden positions, ready to fight in ways the enemy could never predict. The veterans of Earth were prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson written in blood and fire. Never underestimate those who have truly known war. The Tircal attack began at dawn, station time. Their warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a deadly flower blooming in the blackness of space. Over 200 vessels, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to nimble fighters, arrayed themselves against the Confederation capital. In the main defense control center, Admiral Zorgath watched with Major Kelly and Captain Hayes at his side. The room was tense but quiet, none of the panic that might be expected in the face of such overwhelming force. "They're exactly where we predicted," Garcia said from his console. "Moving into standard assault pattern." Kelly nodded. "Begin phase 1. Instead of moving the Confederation fleet to engage directly, as the Tircal would expect, only a small group of ships moved forward. The rest remained in defensive positions around the station, seemingly passive. The Tircal command ship transmitted the formal challenge that began all their military engagements, a tradition thousands of years old. They expected the traditional response, followed by formal fleet engagement. Instead, they received a burst of garbled nonsense signals on all frequencies. Garcia's team had flooded their communications with contradictory orders, false alarms, and misleading information. "Their formation is hesitating," Hayes observed. "They don't understand why we're not following protocol," Kelly said. "Good. Keep them confused. Washington, are your teams ready?" Washington's voice came through the comm. "All in position. They won't know what hit them." As the Tircal fleet paused to reassess the situation, the small group of Confederation ships suddenly accelerated to attack speed. But instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, they targeted the command ship specifically, ignoring the heavily armed frontline vessels. This violation of combat norms further confused the Tircal. Their formations began to break as ships moved to protect their commanders. In the chaos, the first boarding parties launched. Unlike traditional Confederation tactics, which focused on ship-to-ship combat, Kelly had advocated for direct infiltration. Small, heavily armed teams in stealth craft slipped past the disorganized Tircal fleet and attached to the hulls of key enemy vessels. "First teams have breached," reported a Confederation officer. "They're following the Earth patterns." Admiral Zorgath watched the tactical display with growing amazement. "This is unlike any battle I have witnessed in 70 years of service." "This is how humans fight," Hayes said simply. The Tircal fleet, still struggling to restore communications and protect their command ships, finally pushed forward toward the station. As they approached, the main Confederation fleet engaged, but not in the orderly, predictable patterns the enemy expected. Ships attacked in seemingly random groups, striking from unexpected angles, then retreating before the enemy could effectively respond. "They're trying to adapt," Garcia noted, as the Tircal ships began to break from their formal battle formations, "but they're not used to this kind of flexibility." "Now for the real surprise," Kelly said. "Mitchell, execute Phase 3. Throughout the station, defensive systems activated, but not the ones the Tircal would have studied and prepared for. Under Sergeant Mitchell's direction, the station's ordinary maintenance systems had been weaponized. Repair drones became suicide bombers. Sensor arrays projected false targets. Waste disposal units ejected clouds of reflective particles that confused enemy targeting systems. The Tircal pressed their attack despite the confusion. Several of their ships broke through the Confederation defenses and attached to the station. Boarding parties cut through the hull, expecting to meet organized resistance at predetermined defensive points. Instead, they found empty corridors. The traditional defensive positions had been abandoned. "They're inside," a Confederation officer reported, his voice tight with tension. "Good," Kelly replied, surprising the alien staff. "Washington, they're all yours." Throughout the station, Small mixed teams of humans and aliens waited in hidden positions. They let the first wave of Tirkal troops advance, then attacked from behind and from the sides. They didn't try to hold ground or establish battle lines. They struck, inflicted casualties, then melted away before the Tirkal could organize an effective response. In the command center, Kelly received continuous updates. Washington's teams are engaging in sections 12 through 17. Mitchell's traps are activating in the main docking bays. Garcia's false signals are drawing enemy forces into empty sections. Admiral Zorgath observed it all with growing respect. "This is chaos, but controlled chaos." "Exactly," Hayes said. "The difference is we understand the chaos. They don't." The battle raged for 6 hours. The Tirkal, facing an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable combat doctrine, became increasingly disorganized. Their strict hierarchy, which had served them for centuries, became a weakness as individual commanders waited for orders that never came through the jammed communications. The turning point came when Washington led a daring assault on a Tirkal dreadnought that had attached to the station's upper level. His mixed team of human and alien soldiers fought their way through the ship, not to capture it, but to reach its engine room. "We're in position," Washington reported. "Mitchell's special. Package is ready." "Do it," Kelly ordered. The explosion wasn't particularly large, but it was perfectly placed. The dreadnought's power core destabilized, forcing the ship to detach from the station and retreat. As it pulled away, its emergency signals broadcast clear warnings to the rest of the fleet. Garcia made sure those warnings were received by every Tirkal ship, amplified and repeated. The message was clear. The Confederation had found a way to sabotage their power cores. It was a lie, of course. Mitchell had only damaged the one ship. But in the confusion of battle, with communications unreliable and their formations broken, the Tirkal commanders couldn't verify what was happening. "They're retreating," Hayes said as the enemy fleet began to pull back. "All of them." The command center erupted in cheers, but Admiral Zorgath raised a hand for silence. "This is not a full retreat. They are regrouping." "Then we don't give them time," Kelly said firmly. "Press the advantage." The Admiral looked at her with new respect. "Yes. Order all ships to pursue. Maintain the human attack patterns." The Confederation fleet, energized by their unexpected success, pursued the disorganized Tirkal ships. By the end of the day, the enemy fleet had fully withdrawn from Confederation space, leaving behind dozens of damaged or captured vessels. In the aftermath, the capital station was damaged but intact. Casualties were far lower than anyone had predicted. The Tirkal, expecting to face a familiar enemy with familiar tactics, had been completely unprepared for the human way of war. 1 month later, Admiral Zorgath stood before the full Confederation Council. Captain Hayes and Major Kelly stood with him along with Washington, Garcia, and Mitchell. "The Tirkal Empire has requested peace talks," the Admiral announced. "Their defeat at our capital has shaken their confidence. For the first time in centuries, they face an enemy they do not understand." The council leader looked at the humans. "We owe this victory to our new allies from Earth. They have shown us that our military doctrine, unchanged for 300 years, had become predictable and inflexible." Hayes stepped forward. "Earth doesn't claim to have all the answers. We learned our methods through centuries of conflict among ourselves, a history we're not proud of. But that experience has value. Here now." Admiral Zorgath made a formal gesture of respect to the humans. "The Confederation has created a new strategic council. Captain Hayes will serve as its first human member. Major Kelly will lead a new training program teaching her methods to our forces." As the council session ended, Kelly found herself surrounded by alien military officers eager to learn more about Earth's combat techniques. She glanced at Washington, who smiled slightly. "They get it now, don't they?" he said quietly. Kelly nodded. "They thought they understood combat. They'd studied it for centuries, made it formal and predictable. They never understood that real war is chaos, adaptation, and will." Hayes joined them, looking out at the stars visible through the chamber's great windows. "The Admiral told me something interesting yesterday," she said. "The Tirkal have a new name for human soldiers in their military reports. What's that? Mitchell asked. They call us the unpredictable ones. Hayes smiled. I think it's a compliment. Kelly looked at her team of veterans, people who had seen the worst of humanity's wars and survived. Now they were teaching those hard lessons to the stars. Not bad for a bunch of primitive warriors, she said.